Okay, Chairman Vidal, you're in charge now.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. Do we, let me see, who are we missing? We're missing Councilor Stanley, correct? He's not here yet, is he? Hmm.
I'm here,
Oh, there he is. I'm sorry. I didn't see you. My mistake. Councilor Stanley,
the
my,
handsome one up in the left-hand corner.
there we go. I'm looking at a big screen here. You're over there.
All right.
All right. All right. I think we have 7:02. Let's get started with the clerk. Please call the roll.
Yes. Counselor Dunn,
Present.
Counselor McLaughlin,
Present.
Counselor O'Brien,
Present.
Counselor Stanley,
Present.
Chairman Vidal.
Present.
Mr. Chairman, all members are present.
Thank you very much, Mr. Clerk. I appreciate your help there. Well, let's start with the approval of the minutes. Councilor Stanley makes a motion to approve the minutes from May 18th.
Mr.
2020.
Chairman, I don't think those minutes are completed yet. Councilman McLaughlin.
Mr. Clerk, I thought we received those copies, didn't we? Mr. Clerk?
No, I didn't write them.
All right, so then
I'm a
we're
little
not
backed
approving
up.
anything. So I guess I will make a motion to approve, to table the minutes from May 18th.
So moved. Karen Dunn.
All right. All in favor, say aye.
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 I'll say no. Thank you very much. Those minutes have been tabled. All right, Mr. Clerk, what do we have for new matters for today, Monday, June 1st?
What do we have for new matters? Give me 1 second.
Thank you.
The first new matter is a request for the dedications for the Recreation Board, Peter Calora, Joseph Lazaro, John C. Peacock, Richard Scanlon, and Stephen McMahon. I'm sorry, Stephen McGovern. I said that.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have someone from the Recreation Department on the call?
Yeah, this is Jeanette McCarthy. Mr. Abruzzi is on vacation this week.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, for being here. Someone make a motion to hear from all off-committee members. All, someone?
Councilman McLaughlin moves to hear from all off-committee members.
All right, on the motion, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right. Mayor, I imagine you are here to speak on behalf of the director from the Rec Department.
Yes, that's correct, Mr.
All
Chairman.
right. Great. You have the floor, Mayor. Go right ahead.
So some of these requests for Peter Calora, Joseph Lazaro, John C. Peacock, Richard Scanlon, and Stephen McGovern. Some had come in before the rec board had a policy. They had a policy change, so they were moving towards having a bench. There were all kinds of different requests, so they decided to look at it. And so as a result, they have recommended to the city council that there be a bench with a plaque on each of the playgrounds that are listed. Peter Calora for Hillcroft Playground, Joseph Lazaro for Cornelia Warren, John Peacock for Lowell Field, Richard Scanlon for Cornelia Warren, and Stephen McGovern for Elsie Turner. So you have a letter dated May 21, 2020 from the Recreation Department, and the board did vote those subject to the city council naturally discussion and hopefully approval. That's what I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Appreciate your coming in here and helping us out with this. It seems that we have a question from Councilor McLaughlin on the matter. Councilor McLaughlin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Not a question. Just I think this is a wonderful recognition of some wonderful people that have served the city of Waltham over the years, and I would move approval.
All right. On the motion for approval, anybody else? Are we good? On the motion for approval, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and the committee. Thank you.
Thank
Bye
you.
now.
All right. Thank you, Rita. All right, we got background music.
It sounded like the city's hold music.
Exactly. All right. Mr. Clerk, what do we have next?
We have a fortune teller renewal for Dawn Marie Kostoff, Her Lady's Oracle, 942 Trapello Road.
Great, thank you. I see that Ms. Kostroff is here. Is that correct?
Kostorf, yes, I am.
Kostroff, my mistake. Yes.
That's okay.
Thank you very much for being here. And this is a renewal, correct?
That is correct.
All right, can you tell us a bit more about your renewal process here? Tell us a bit more about your license renewal.
So as being the first fortune teller in Waltham to actually have a license, I've been coming back to the city council each year to get it renewed. This year I would have come a little bit earlier, but thanks to pandemic and the Steampunk Festival being canceled, I was able to, get things together for now. So having the license will help me be able to do the Steampunk Festival as well as any other Waltham festivals that might need something. I do online readings at home, and I don't want to do any of those things without the license and have that all together. I don't use any other property. I don't have any other offices. It's just my computer and me.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions or any comments from committee members? All right, Buna. Councilor McLaughlin, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the clerk, it just refreshed my memory. We had a similar application come in a week or two ago. What were the conditions with that application?
You wanted him to have a valid business certificate. Ms. Kostorf does have a valid business certificate.
That's great. Thank you. Mr. Chair, that answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor McLaughlin. Anybody else from committee would like to speak? We have Councilor Dunn. You have the floor. Go ahead.
Thank you. I threw you to the petitioner. How many years have you been in business in Waltham? Just the 3 years that I've been reading at the Steampunk Festival. The Steampunk Festival, because it's a Victorian era type thing, I had always asked about doing tarot readings and why they didn't have anyone. And they said it's because no one is licensed in Waltham. I've been practicing tarot readings for about 25 years now. So I was like, oh, I could probably do it. And I love going to the Steampunk Festival and supporting, Waltham business and just having a great time with everybody. So for this would have been my 3rd year of reading. Thank you very much. Sure.
You all said, Councilor Dunn?
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Great. Thank you very much. Anybody else on committee or anybody else, any other councilors would like to speak regarding the license renewal? Councilor, we have the ward councilor, Councilor LaFosse. It's line Councilor LaFosse. You got the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to take a moment just to say hello to Ms. Kostorf as the Ward 1 counselor and just introduce myself formally. You've been doing this, you said, for 3 years in Waltham?
Yes.
Excellent. All right. And 25 years as a business. I just literally came on just to say hello.
Well, 25 years in doing this privately in my home. This is the first, this is me going out for the first time. So
Very good.
in public.
Nice,
So thank you.
nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilor LaFosse. Anybody else? If that's seems everything is good. Do we have a motion for approval?
So moved.
All right. Councilor Dunn, motion for approval. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Thank you. All
Thank
right.
you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Council.
Thank you. All right.
Good night.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Mr. Clerk, what else we have?
We have a Class 2 license renewal for Colvin's, 185 Prospect Street.
All right. Thank you very much. Do we have all the paperwork submitted correctly, Mr. Clerk?
Yes.
All right. Do we have any I don't think any sort of questions coming from members of the committee? This is a standard renewal, correct?
Yes.
All right. I know that I informed the Ward 9 counselor that this was happening. I wanted to hear if he has anything he would like to speak regarding this, if everything is okay with his business moving forward with the renewal. Councilor Pass. You're here. Are you gonna be saying, are you gonna speak on the matter at all, or are you just gonna?
Yeah, I'd appreciate the opportunity to ask a couple questions.
Sure.
The owner isn't. So
the
on
owner's
these
not here.
renewals, so if the questions are for us, that's fine, but the owners tend to not come in on the renewals unless someone lets me know that they want to invite them in.
Yeah, I did have a couple questions just for the council in general, if that's okay.
Okay.
Just generally, I've seldom, through you, Chair, to anyone who has any pertinent information, just have folks heard of this business and heard anything positive, or I'm very not familiar with them at all, so just appreciate if folks know. They operate like a rental truck kind of company, so.
Thank you, Mr. Paz. To the clerk, I think this is not my first time seeing them come in front of us, I believe, right? They're around, I believe we haven't had any sort of concerns in the past. I think they've always been doing their business out of the same location, and they've been submitting the renewal paperwork every year. Is that correct?
Yes, yeah.
Okay. Again, I don't recall any sort of on the renewals, any sort of questions or concerns from neighbors or abutters from the former Ward 9 councilor, as he was a member of the committee last time around. But if anybody else in chair of the committee want to speak, I think we have Councilor Dunn has raised her hand. I'm going to yield the floor to Councilor Dunn. Go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I looked them up. It looks like they've been in business for a while, I believe at least 12 years, and they rent like bucket trucks and aerial trucks, and they also sell them. I'm assuming they may sell their rental versions when they're done with them. So that's their core business, and that's what they're asking for a renewal on.
All right. Thank you very much for the piece of information. Really appreciate it. Any Councilor Stanley, you have your hand raised.
Sure. Thank you. Just to answer Councilor Paz's question, I am familiar with who the owners are. I believe they live in the city and have been longtime business people in Waltham and have contributed to, a lot of different things in the city. Good civic-minded business people, and they own, I imagine they still do own, the gas station on the other side of Prospect Street as well.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate the insight. I appreciate it. I was digging up some information on my end and no complaints here. I appreciate everyone's experience and knowledge. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Councilor Paz, for your comments, and thank you, Councilor Stanley, for providing some feedback regarding the owners of the business. Do we have a motion for approval?
Council McLaughlin moves approval.
All right, on the motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Those say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. All right, we're done with that. Mr. Clerk, what else? What do we have? What's next?
We have a fuel storage license at 89 Lincoln Woods Road.
All right, thank you very much. I believe the, let me just open up my screen here. Here we go. All right. Thank you. I believe the petitioner is here. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. LaFasi, thank you for being here. I know that you had you were on our Zoom meeting last week and we spoke, you told us exactly what was going on here. My question to you is, did you receive the list of questions from your neighbors? They had a list of questions, they had what answers for?
I did. I received those late Saturday afternoon.
Okay, great. Have you been able to go through that list?
I was.
Okay, all right. Was there any, I know that at the end of last, during the last meeting, you had a sort of you were asking the neighbors who had a concern about these underground tanks to meet with you and discuss some of the things about it. Did that ever happen?
It did. They did come over after the meeting.
Mhm.
I do apologize, as this is the only quiet place in my house right now with 3 kids, but it is about to rain, so I'm moving my meeting inside,
All right.
but we'll continue to answer questions for you. We did have a meeting. They came over shortly thereafter the call, and we had what I thought was a very nice conversation for about 2.5 hours. I think we resolved some disputes and some disagreements, and I was able to answer as many questions for them as possible during that time.
Okay,
I do apologize for moving on you guys.
no worries. Thank you for being here. I'm gonna yield the floor to the to committee members. So I want to make sure that they have an opportunity to ask questions. I'm sure all of us have received those questions, correct?
Yes.
Okay, great. Let me just double check here. So I got a few screens running. All right, so I have Councilor Stanley has raised his hand. Councilor Stanley.
No, I don't have my hand raised for this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's from the last
All right, here we go.
issue.
All right,
Raise my hand. I raised my hand for real?
there we go, Councilor O'Brien. Thank you very much. You have the floor.
Yeah, thanks. I just have a question for the clerk. I asked during the meeting last week if he could research the number of 500-gallon tanks there are in the city and in residential areas, and have any had any issues at all. So that through you to the clerk of the committee.
Yeah, so I just wrapped up answering these questions early this afternoon, but there's about 19 of these underground 500-gallon tanks. And I talked to the deputy chief for fire prevention, and they haven't had issues with any tanks so far in Waltham.
Any idea how far back the oldest one goes?
I think like 2010 is when people started putting these in Waltham.
All right, thank you. That's all I have. Thank you.
Anybody else from committee has any questions for the petitioner, or anybody else here would like to speak? We have Councilor Dunn. You have your hand raised. Go right ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Through you to the petitioner, did you guys come to any agreements on this list? Can we winnow it down? All of the questions back and forth, there's a lot of them that we don't know whether or not they've been answered yet. So is there any particular issue still outstanding that needs to be discussed?
I believe that question would be for the Burks. If they'd have any additional questions for me or for the council, I'll be more than willing to answer anything that you guys have.
Okay, thank you very much. So is it appropriate, Mr. Chair, to hear from the Burks at this time to see if there's anything left on the list that needs clarification?
Yes, it is.
Okay, thank you.
Go
Hello.
ahead, Mr. Burke.
Yeah, well, one of our major concerns is the location of the tank itself, and if it can be placed as far away from our property or our driveway as possible.
So we're wondering if the location has changed since our last meeting with Mr. LaFasi?
All right.
Okay, fair enough. Mr. LaFasi, do you have a response to that?
So as of Friday, we had an additional meeting with Caravan Lane that I invited the Burks to. Originally, they were planning on attending. Unfortunately, they had a prior engagement that came up last minute that they couldn't attend to. We did come up with two locations. One is the current location that is on the plan, and the second location is about 30 to 40 feet further back, which would put it further away from their driveway. Both locations, myself, Mike St. Pierre, and Phil Harrison all agree that they are a vast improvement from the current location of the above ground tank that will be removed. And it's going to be either way, it's an increase in safety. We've also addressed concerns, myself and Mike St. Pierre on Friday morning to discuss filling these tanks. And we've noted the account already that all fills of the tank are going to be 100% from my driveway. Therefore, there's no reason for Caravan Lane to be anywhere near the Burks property. So that hopefully should mitigate all problems and issues.
Thank you, Ms. Fossey. May I ask you, so there won't be any issues with filling the tanks, like proximity to the truck, to the actual tank? It's all going to happen on your driveway and there's no issues if you go with the 30 to 40 foot back option, which sounds like it might be more further away than what you had originally intended, but it's still amenable to you?
Correct. So both locations for filling purposes is not an issue. We actually marked it out Friday morning. At the current location, it's about 60 to 70 feet roughly from my driveway to fill. The hose is 130 feet long. The second location is approximately about 90 to 100 feet, which once again, gives us about 30 feet of play. So even if there's a vehicle in the driveway, we should still be able to reach that without any issues. Once again, this would all be pending as long as there's no unforeseens when we dig, for instance, ledge or issues of that nature, and or any issues with the fire department or the zoning committee once we decide to mark out where it is going to go.
Thank you very much. Mr. and Mrs. Burke, are you satisfied with the 30 to 40 feet back option?
Yes, with the 30, 40 feet back option, if that's feasible. And I think we'd be satisfied with that and feel a little more safe than it beside a button in the driveway.
My only question for the Burkes and for council is, obviously, you're really not going to know what we get until we dig. If that 30 or 40 feet back option is not feasible due to topography and what's underground, is there going to be any issues going forward, coming closer up? We'll do everything in our powers to obviously make that possible, but obviously unforeseens are unforeseens.
Of course, thank you. Mr. Chair, I have no further questions. If any, I yield the floor to anyone else on the council that would like to speak.
Thank you very much, Councilor Dunn. I just had a question for the clerk. If the petitioner is gonna move the tank, do we have to do this all over again because the tank no longer is gonna be at the location that on the original application?
If he's gonna move it from a different site from the plan that was filed.
Right, it's the same property, of course, but it's gonna be moved to a different area. From what I'm seeing here, we're gonna be looking further back from where he originally had it planned. So. my
Yeah,
question
so
is-
I mean, if they're gonna place it in a different place than is identified on the plan that was submitted to the council, we should get an updated plan and reference it. And if they do decide to move it, I can check with the fire department if that can be done administratively through them, or if that needs to be done through the council. I can look into that.
Okay, all right, that's good to know. So in the event that, for example, it goes, we approve the change of location, and yet Mr. LaFosse finds there's ledge or some form of topography that does not allow this to happen. Which I'm not sure. I mean, I guess we don't know until we start digging up and find out what's under that underground. So in that case, what will be the procedure? Where do we need to go back to plan A? I mean, it's just, I guess it's got kind of a couple of questions that I had about that.
I don't know, Counselor, if you'd have to renotice and do the hearing all over again, if that's the case. It's a certain number of gallons at a residence, but so I mean, you're granting a license for a certain number of gallons, and then there's permitting that's done with the fire department after that.
Okay, all right. So
If
Go
I
ahead.
have
go
one
ahead.
question, if
No,
I am
go
correct
ahead.
that before, and Caravan Lane could speak for this as well, prior to digging, we, obviously we have to have the fire department out for a site inspection regardless, either way, so.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, the permit filed with the fire department does have the final location that we're going to be installing the tank at. And if it's not at that location, then obviously a new permit has to be filed with the fire department. But from the approval of the gallons, that's obviously in your purview.
Right. Yeah, that seems clear. That makes sense now. Councilor McLaughlin, you have your hand raised. Go right ahead. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to clarify, Mr. Halverson and Mr. St. Pierre are both with Caravan Lane, correct?
That is correct.
So is this a case where you're looking at a new location that's 40 or 50 feet back and you won't be able to tell till you put a shovel in the ground if it's workable?
From what we can see above ground, we believe it's workable, but the bottom of the tank is going to be 5.5, 6 feet down. And until we dig, we don't know.
Okay, so, and through you, Mr. Chairman, to the clerk, we can obviously add conditions to this, correct?
Yes.
So, Mr. Chair, I guess what I'd suggest is I would move approval with 2 conditions. One is that the petitioner, before next Monday's meeting, get us the new plan and the location that they're proposing for where the tank is going to go. That would be one condition. The second condition is if they do put the shovel on the ground and they find out there's ledge there, or there's some other reason they can't do it, that rather than re-advertise it, there'd be a condition there that would have them come back to us to work that out.
Okay. So we have a motion for approval with those 2 conditions. Everyone clear on the conditions that Councilor McLaughlin just stated? Do you need that in writing, Mr. Clerk, or are you good there from your end?
I got it.
You got it? All right. So we got a motion for approval under those 2 conditions. On the motion, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. So we're looking for, by next Monday, the new plans should be submitted to the clerk's office. Is that correct? Just Councilor McLaughlin, is that correct?
Actually, they need to have that for the package on Thursday. So,
On Thursday.
and again, just before we break from this, to Mr. St. Pierre and Mr. Halverson, is that problematic to draw those plans up and get them back to us?
I'm doing that now.
Okay. I think they can get them by Thursday
Okay,
to the clerk's office.
great. Mr. LaFosse, just we're clear, correct on this? You're going to be getting the plans and then you're going to submit them to the clerk's office?
Yeah, I'll be working with Mike St. Pierre and Phil Harrison to draw something up. We should be able to get it to you fairly quickly. I don't see any issues having a option A and option B for you guys. And
Mhm.
hopefully that makes everybody happy and it's a win-win for everyone.
There we go. That's what I'd like to hear. Thank you very much again for your time, for everyone, for the Burks. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and thank you for sharing your thoughts and your questions. We really appreciate your, your input. It definitely, we trying to make sure that everyone is happy and comes out with, we have the best outcome here, and I think we did. I'm hoping that the new location will satisfy Mr. LaFosse and the Burks, and we're all going to be happy down in Lincoln Woods down there. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Do you have anything else on the docket for tonight?
I'd move to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
All right. On the motion to adjourn, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed say no. The ayes have it. Thank you very much. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
All right.